Hey, this is Jaren here. I just wanted to add a little disclaimer before starting this episode. Unfortunately, we had some problems with the audio files, so this episode is going to sound a little bit different. We're using a backup recording, which required a fair bit of tweaking to even out the levels, so there will be more than a few strange sounds. I really want to get this episode out because we had some issues with episode 16, and that's still not been released, though I am working on getting it out ASAP. Apologies in advance for the sound quality, but hopefully enjoy the podcast regardless, because let me tell you, it's a good one for sure. On with the show.
Hello, and welcome to From the Vault, episode 18. I'm your host, Dan Nathaniel, as always. Nathaniel, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing alright.
Thank you for hosting in the absence last week.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. It was fun.
That was a really good episode. It was good stuff. How's your week been?
It's been alright. I've been doing a lot of training. The Fringe is in town, and I'm doing some work with some of the with one of the companies, like one of the big venue guys, and we're doing a lot of work with them over this weekend. So it's been a lot of long days, but it's been alright. It's been good. Been out in the masses of the people, seeing the tourists and the locals.
For anyone who's not aware, the Edinburgh Festival is a month-long arts festival, mostly comedy-focused, I'd say, but...
It's all sorts of stuff. You get comedy, I don't know, I think it's known for, like, weird dramas just as much as it's known for comedies. You can come along and see, like, most of the big stand-up comedians, especially the ones who tour the UK more, and you can also come along and see, like, weird one-person shows in tiny, very hot theaters, and you can see like juggling and like imported like Korean stuff. Like, there's really just a whole bunch of stuff. The whole idea is that it's like a big arts festival,
smorgasbord.
Yeah,
and it sort of takes over the city, and the population more than doubles for a month.
It like times this by 6.
6? Is it 6?
Yeah. Like 5 or 6.
Oh my god, there's so many people.
It's a lot of people.
I did make like a bit of a resolution a few years ago, because I've been in Edinburgh like 10, 11 years, something like that now. And what happens after a few years as an Edinburgh resident is that people sort of inevitably get a bit grumpy about just all the people everywhere.
Everyone just decides that they hate the Fringe because it brings all these tourists, and you're a bit like, buddy, it pays for your city.
It's just so good as well, though. Like, it's just so easy after work to just, I don't know, just somebody walks up to your desk and they're just like, hey, I'm going to go see this thing tonight. You got any plans? And it's like, no. And you just kind of have these really cool little improvised evenings, which I really like. So, yeah, festival's great. Fringe is great. What show are you helping with?
I'm not helping with a specific show. I'm like working for one of the venues.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I remember you saying. Nice. Is that obviously is in... How many weeks into that are you? Because if it's right about now, but I imagine there's a lot of prep stuff and things like that.
I wasn't involved as much of the prep stuff. I'm like starting working with them like during the festival. So like this week was a big week.
Nice. So Magic. I've been away for a wee while. So I've not really been playing a lot of Magic. I've had a bit of break from everything for a week. You've been playing a lot of Bridgevine.
Yeah, I've been playing a lot of it. So I'm part of a Discord for patrons or Patreons. I don't really know if you're meant to say Patreons. I feel very strange saying Patreons.
I think it's patrons.
I'm going to say patrons.
Beyond patrons.
And if Patreon wants to like come to my house and beat me up, then they're welcome to. But yeah, I'm a part of the Discord for the Game Podcast, a significantly larger podcast hosted by significantly handsomer people.
I don't know. Definitely better at Magic.
But I'm part of their Discord, and the Discord kind of blew up like about 2 weeks ago, talking about this new deck playing like Vengevine and Bridge from Below. There was like 150 with it, and apparently the guy who made the deck, who is also the same guy who designed Hollow One, was like on the Spikes Discord talking about it, and there's some like crossover there. So then he ends up coming round to the game Discord, and then we had a lot of conversations about what ended up being called Bridgevine.
Which is a cool name.
Which is...
I like it.
It's I think it's gonna be one of the next big things in Modern. I think it's really good, having played it a lot now. The deck is kind of similar in some of its play patterns to Hollow One, and kind of similar in some of its play patterns to Dredge, but quite different to either. And I think it's just really busted, having played it now.
It does a lot of unreasonable things, and the backup plans are really cool. But
So let me explain a little bit. Let me pull up our deck list and see if I can explain a little bit what the deck does for the people at home. Because obviously, like Vengevine and Bridge from Below are cards, but you can't just put four of each of them in a deck and be like, "Sick, we did it." Bridgevine, hooray! You do have to do something else. Where is a good deck list? So you're playing for Faithless Looting. That is like one of the core bits of this deck, because that card is just really good.
Yep.
And it is just like kind of unreasonable to be playing any graveyard deck that isn't playing for Faithless Looting. And then you're playing the 4 Vengevines and the 4 Bridge from Below, which obviously want to be in the graveyard. Aside from Faithless Looting, your ways of getting them into the graveyard are Stitcher's Supplier, the M19 card, which is a black for a 1/1, with when it enters or dies, you mill 3. Which is like way more powerful than you expect it to be. It just does a lot of things. On turn 1, if you don't have any of the cards you want to discard in your hand, it digs deeper to putting stuff in the graveyard than Faithless Looting does. It lets you like chump block against other decks. Like the Shadow matchup is kind of insane for lots of reasons. Partly because like Grixis Shadows isn't very well set up to beat up on graveyard decks. But part of it is like you play a Stitcher Supplier and they play a Gurmag Angler, and you're like, okay, cool. I'm going to block that if you attack, and I'm going to mill 3 more cards. And milling 3 cards in this deck is really powerful, because if you turn over at any point a Vengevine or a Bridge from Below, your deck turns into like something really scary. You're playing, in addition to those 2, Faithless Looting and the Stitcher Supplier, which are like your exciting discard outlets. I guess Stitcher Supplier isn't really a discard outlet. Those are exciting like graveyard velocity cards. You also have Insolent Neonate, the guy from Shadows of Innistrad, who's like a red 1/1 with Menace, and you could discard a card and sack him to draw a card. He is okay with Vengevine and very good with Bridge from Below.
Makes sense.
Because you immediately upgrade him into a 2/2 and get your Bridge from Below in the graveyard.
You get a card.
Yeah, and you get to draw a card. It's pretty good. You're then also playing 4 Gravecrawler as kind of like another way of getting value out of your graveyard. You know, like you play a Stitcher Supplier and you mill a Gravecrawler and a Vengevine, and you can cast the Gravecrawler and get back the Vengevine.
Stitcher Supplier himself is also a zombie for the purposes of...
Yeah. That's kind of important for that one. Yeah. And obviously you get the zombies from Below.
Yeah.
And then you're playing so the Bridge from Below plan is then complemented by 3 in some lists, 4 in others, Viscera Seers, which is an important card because it lets you kind of like grind and beat Anger of the Gods and against decks with not very much removal, unless your Bridge from Below actually be good plans, as opposed to like otherwise against humans you'd have a really hard time with your Bridge from Below draws. You'd just be like, okay, well, I guess all my guys, if they die, become 2/2s, and the human opponent is like, okay, that is fine. I'm going to hit you with this Mantis Rider.
Yeah.
And then all the cards that I've stated except for Faithless Looting are 1-mana creatures, which is pretty good with Vengevine because you want to be able to cast 2 creatures in a turn. Because you want to be able to get that boy back. In addition to that, you're also playing
around a while, actually. It used to be a bit more of a non-player than it is now, so just for the sake of it, 2 green, elemental, haste. Whenever you cast a spell, if it's the second creature spell you cast this turn, you may return Bridgevine from your graveyard to the battlefield. Carry on.
Yeah, Bridgevine is kind of like Hollow One in that it's a creature. It's like a 4-power creature that likes discard and can kill your opponent quite fast and can come down on really early turns. But unlike Hollow One, you don't have to play the random discard spells, which I think is an upside.
Yeah.
And you only have to discard one card, just the Vengevine. Mm-hmm. And it has recursive elements to it.
Right. Hollow One gets terminated. It's well, okay.
Yeah, if someone dismembers your Hollow One's gone. If someone dismembers your Vengevine, you're okay, sack it to Viscerous here, bring it back next turn. Helping out with that is 4 Walking Ballista and 4 Hangback Walker. Those numbers move up and down a little bit. You generally don't want less than 7 zero-cost creatures.
Right.
These guys are pretty good with Vengevine. They enable your most explosive turns, where you get to put 2 Vengevines into play on turn 1. Because you can go turn 1, Faithless Looting, discard 2 Vengevines, play 2 zero costs, hit you for 8.
That's so silly. Yeah. I've seen some pretty silly states, but the double Vengevine turn 1 I've not actually seen live yet.
They also allow you to... they're good with Bridge from Below. I've had games where I went I had a game against Burn, where I'm on the draw, they go turn 1, Inspiring Vantage, Suspend Rift Bolt. This is game 1, so I'm I've kept a hand in the dark that has a Stitches Supplier and 4 zero-cost creatures.
Okay.
And I think I also had a Faithless Looting, and the idea was, I'm going to play Stitches Supplier turn 1, and if I hit a Bridge, it's insane, and if I hit a Vengevine, it's okay. If I hit both, it's madness.
Okay.
And then if I don't hit anything, I have this Faithless Looting, and if I don't hit anything after that, then I don't know what this deck is meant to be.
Yeah, exactly.
So I hit a Bridge from Below on the Sister Supplier mill. So I look at my hand and I'm alright, I'll make 8 2/2s. I'll make 4 2/2s even. I don't think Burn can beat 4 2/2s on turn 1.
Yeah.
So then I killed my Burn opponent. It was great. Yeah, so they're good with Bridge from Below in that they just 0 mana 2/2s with the Bridge.
Okay.
And they are good with Vengevine because they bring it back. And I have cast them 4 mana costs that are not 0 a reasonable number of times. Walking Ballista can sometimes just be that last point of damage you need. You get your opponent down to 1, and they stabilize, and then you just draw a Walking Ballista, and you're okay, colorless Fireball, here we go. And then Hangback Walker is a surprisingly powerful card, just played fairly. It's not really a late game plan on its own, but given how powerful your early game plan can be, you can often have your opponent to a point where they just can't beat a Hangback Walker that you play for 1 and then just keep ticking up. It also works very well alongside the Viscerous here to allow you to sack it at any point to cash in for the 1/1 Thopters, with probably the most important card in this list, in my opinion. I guess it's not really true, but a very important card to the whole deck, which is Goblin Bushwhacker.
Yeah.
Which I think any reasonable list should be a 4 of. Mm-hmm. Because it's obviously very good with Bridge Below. It's another cheap creature to get back Vengevine, and it just allows you to have the most explosive possible starts, aside from multiple Vengevines. There are a few flex slots people try around various things with. I've seen Cathartic Reunion. I've seen and tried also Corpse Churn shows up in reasonable numbers. People try Greater Gargadon. I have seen and tried Blood Rage Brawler, Miasmic Mummy, and Rotting Rats. Reaching back into the mists of time there. All of those are creatures that let you discard cards when they enter. People went on a big old search for cards that let you discard other cards. Ideally, creatures, please, because they would like them to bring back Vengevine.
Some people playing Driven to Despair in the sideboard. I know you'll get to the sideboard in a minute, but I'm just saying, everything's a bit wacky right now, and it's exciting.
Yeah, I think Driven to Despair is mostly wrong.
Yeah.
Bloodghast is another thing that shows up in some numbers, depending on stuff.
Yeah, I saw a bit of discussion on that, actually, in terms of, like, is it good? Do we want it main? Bloody dumb.
Yeah. That's a really hard question to answer. But okay, so basically the deck is trying to put a Vengevine or a Bridgevine below into the graveyard as early as possible and kill your opponent as quickly as possible by abusing how unreasonable those cards can be when you really are built to abuse them. And so far it has felt like you have game against everybody because you always have your nut draws where you just like make 2 Vengevines very early and deal so much damage to them. Again, unlike Hollow One, Vengevines have haste.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
So when you put like 8 or 9 or 10 power into play, you know, I've had games where I put like 12 power into play or something like that on turn 2, and then I hit my opponent with 8 of it. And then, like, Jesus, that's really hard for them to come back from.
Yeah, exactly. You're just kind of on the back foot, whereas obviously resolving very early Hollow Ones and Anglers is also difficult to deal with, but at least you've got your life total and, you know, you kind of untap. And going back to what we said about the Terminate Dismember, I think that's pretty big. Like, I don't know. I mean, from playing recently, I've been playing Mardu Pyro, and I don't know what I'm supposed to do against this. I think it's Anger and Leyline, but jeez.
So, yeah, I mean, I guess, so, that's the deck's game plan. The deck's sideboard has generally some number of Lightning Axe, Ingot Chewer, Thoughtseize, Collective Brutality, Bitter Blossom, Big Game Hunter, and Leyline of the Void. And then a bunch of other stuff gets tried. I've seen people trying to do transformational sideboards where they turn into 8 whack. I've seen people try and do sideboards that have green in them to try and beat stuff like Leyline and Rest in Peace more efficiently.
One that was running, I think it's in the latest 5.0. Latest 5.0. This person's running 4 Destructive Revelry.
Yeah, which I do think sounds better than Nature's Claim.
Right.
Personally. But there's still like a debate. Oh yeah, Driven to Despair is the other card that shows up in some numbers. There's still some debate. Oh, Dark Blast as well.
Yeah,
people like Dark
Blast. That's really cool. Yeah.
People are trying a lot of different stuff. There's no real consensus, like, best version of the deck right now. There's a lot of stuff to this deck, and a lot of like small stuff that goes into it. But my experience with it has been that post-board, like you say, so the Mardu matchup from my side as Bridgevine has been laughably good game 1, and then game 2 is about, does your opponent understand that they need to have a Leyline in play?
Yeah.
Do you understand that because of this, you need to have a Leyline in play?
Right.
And then you're playing the, like, whose deck can win after nobody has any of their synergies anymore game.
Right.
Which I honestly believe is favored to Bridgevine.
No, I can see that, because, like,
which
you can still kind of swap them with idiots. Like,
yeah.
Right, and just talk about the backup plans.
Sure, okay. But so, like, the deck doesn't look like it has a very good backup plan. You have 8 cards that do nothing, and then another, like, 7 to 8 cards that are, like, pretty bad. Like, all the zero-cost dudes.
Yeah.
But you're mostly trimming the zero-cost dudes, and then the kind of, like, the cards that do nothing without a graveyard, it's kind of okay to keep them in, because if your opponent, like, does Mull to Oblivion for Leyline, then you need to be able to make sure they're actually doing that. Also, you just don't have enough cards to bring in. And again, you also have the games where they don't have the Leyline, and you go, okay, cool, we're playing game 1 again, I'm just going to kill you.
Yeah.
This is specific against Leyline decks, because my experience has been basically that Leyline and Rest in Peace are good enough to stop you from doing your thing, and every other piece of graveyard hate is too slow.
Right.
I have had people, I literally had a game 1 against Tron, where on the draw, he played a turn 1 relic, and I brought back 2 Vengevines on my turn 2 and killed him.
Jeez.
And his turn 1 Relic of Progenitus was too slow.
Yeah, that's mental. I mean, I was thinking about Cage as well, and just thinking like,
Cage is okay, but every build can remove it,
right?
And is also not very good against against Bridge from Below,
right?
So Cage stops the Vine plan, but not the Bridge plan, and because every build is playing Ingot Chewers in the sideboard or some other form of artifact destruction, it makes it's not like you can't just put it on the table and be like, boom, it's over. No more graveyards. Whereas Leyline of the Void and Rest in Peace both do that. They both just say, no more graveyards. Or at least not for you with Leyline. Mm-hmm. The anti-Rest in Peace plan legitimately is go under it and make a board big enough such that by the time they are playing Rest in Peace, they are losing too much tempo by doing so.
Yep. This
is not always reasonable, especially on the draw.
Okay.
So then you have 2 backup plans against Rest in Peace. One is you're bringing in Thoughtseize in your Rest in Peace matchups so that you can catch the Rest in Peace out of their hand, and people keep really bad hands because they have Grave Hate in them.
Okay.
And they're often not even wrong.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But people will keep a hand that doesn't do that much except put a Rest in Peace into play because that's insane against your deck, right?
Right.
So if you Thoughtseize them and take the Rest in Peace, the quality of that hand goes way down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so you're probably going to be able to kill them even if your hand isn't necessarily amazing with just because you have the Thoughtseize. That isn't necessarily something to rely on. But I have found that the deck's actual backup plan is play a bunch of Fugitive Wizard idiots and Goblin Bushwhacker them.
Yeah.
Because Rest in Peace costs 2 mana, Leyline of the Void requires you to mulligan to it, and people will keep bad hands because they have both of these cards in them. Mm-hmm. So at that point, you can just Goblin Bushwhacker people and they die.
And the opponent's in such a weird place because if they don't, if they do decide, I'm going to keep this hand because it's reasonable, even though it doesn't have my hate piece, it's just well, no, you're just going to get, I'm not dredged because it's technically not, actually, you're even using the card any dredge cards? No, outside of Dark Blast. But
there are no dredge cards on the list aside from Dark Blast and some.
Quote unquote, get dredged, which is, the tales all the time.
Yeah, if you play game 1 again, you're probably going to lose again, especially if your game plan is really bad against game 1. But if you try and play game 2, and your hand is, bad at playing Magic, aside from getting rid of graveyards, then, Bridgevine's still going to kill you, because Goblin Bushwhacker still just makes all your idiots hit you really hard.
Yeah.
Also, people are starting to play Bitter Blossom in their sideboard, as I say, which is very good against these Grave Hate. If your opponent goes Rest in Peace and you go Bitter Blossom, a lot of fair decks are oh no.
Oh no. It's really
same with Leyline of the Void.
I've not heard about the Bitter Blossom deck. That's really hot.
But yeah, so and like I say, the planning is most Leyline decks. Obviously, you can't Thoughtseize a Leyline. Playing against Leyline decks is to have your own Leyline because almost every Leyline deck in Modern is itself really bad against Leyline.
That makes sense because otherwise, I'm not saying otherwise I'll play Rip because obviously you need to play White to play Rip. But I do think that there's a consistent theme across, you want to make it one-sided, right?
Yeah, obviously a lot of the Leyline decks are themselves Faithless Looting decks because it fits well with that card.
Right.
Which means that they are themselves graveyard decks in some way. Mm-hmm. And also it often means that they are decks that mulligan quite hard, naturally anyway, mm-hmm. which Leyline fits into, and also often goes well with decks that, want to play slightly unfair. And a lot of the unfair strategies use the graveyard. And again, if you want to use the graveyard and you want Grave Hate, you can't use Relic of Progenitus. So it's Tormod's Crypt or Ravenous Trap, or at that point you're probably wanting Leyline of the Void. But yeah, so most of the Leyline decks Mardu, or Hollow One, or the Mirror, all these decks just dredge play Leyline. It would make sense for me to dredge to play Leyline, but I'm not sure.
Dredge anymore.
Yeah, that's also true. A lot of these decks, like, really struggle if you put a ley line into play. So you're just kind of saying, like, all right, my backup plan, like my terrible deck of fugitive wizards and golden bushwhackers is going to kill you.
That's your question.
And that has been my experience, is that actually it's not that bad at doing that. And then sometimes you keep a hand with ley line and your opponent doesn't, and you're like, oh, okay, you're dead. Because my deck does stuff and yours doesn't.
In answer to your question, because there are some mad people playing Dredge, because there's the Shriekcorn version, which is the one that's being played at the moment. It's not playing Leyline. There doesn't seem to be anything in these sideboards in order to deal with graveyard mirrors, and that seems a bit crazy to me, because decks like we're discussing are like kind of faster than Dredge. I would qualify them as that, but in a kind of...
I mean, the main draw to this deck is that it's faster than Dredge.
Yeah, the speed is like pretty unreal. I mean, I'm still kind of like having these weird PTSD moments of thinking about, how many prize amalgams can you put into play? But I mean, from a consistent speed perspective, there's really no contest.
I mean.
So in Bridgevine, sorry, I was trying to figure out how you could fit the word whack into the word Bridgevine. I don't think you can.
I don't believe it's possible.
Okay, well, we're just gonna.
Also, I don't want to, because I don't want people to be thinking about the bushwhacker when they face the deck.
And then
you get a lot of wins from people being like, I think I'm safe, and then you being like, all right, my board is insane now, and it all has haste. There's a lot of weird, interesting stuff you can do with the deck. Incidentally, there's lots of fun interactions. So, like, let's say you have a Bridge from Below or two in the graveyard, and you have a Viscera Seer, and you play your Goblin Bushwhacker. You can sack it with the trigger on the stack to upgrade the body into one or more zombies that then get haste.
Oh, jeez. That's really cool.
And obviously, you can do the same with the Viscera Seer.
Right.
You can sack creatures before you sack your Stitches Supplier to try and, like, scry cards you want to mill to the top.
What? Hang on.
Your opponent is attacking in such a way that you want to block with your stuff.
Oh, okay.
This isn't always right, because sometimes you want to stack the Stitcher Supplier so that you'll try and get a Bridge from Below in the graveyard before you sack anything else.
Right.
But it's like very much a case-by-case situation thing, because sometimes you want to be like, all right, I need to be hitting, I need to put Vengevines in the graveyard.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to sack my other chump blockers first to try and scry a Vengevine to the top, and then mill that Vengevine by sacking the Stitches Supply.
Got it. That's cool.
Like I say, the Hangerback Walker is way better than it looks.
Mm-hmm. I was going to ask about this.
And then Gravecrawler.
So just while we're on them, before we move on.
Yeah.
Because it is a 17 land deck. So I'm just thinking, because and obviously Ballista is very good against the affinities of the world and things like that, if you can realistically do stuff with it. But this just doesn't seem like a deck that can realistically cast these cards for, high X costs for obvious reasons. But
I have cast them for 2 sometimes, and 1 sometimes, but slightly more than 2, and 0 most often.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense.
Ballista is not a cleanup tool. It is, sometimes it can kill a 1/1 or an X1, and most of the time when you're casting it for a greater than 0 cost, it is just another dorky body, or it's the finishing off burn spell, and most of them are casting it to 0. Hangerback Walker is much better at being cast, because you can cast it for 2, and then the mana investment's a lot smaller, so you can actually do it, whereas paying 4 for Walking Ballista counters is really not happening.
Yeah, so much.
Gravecrawler plus Viscera Seer plus Bridge from Below is equals infinite value.
Okay.
Because you can cast the Gravecrawler from the graveyard, sack it to Viscera Seer to get a 2/2, and scry 1. Cast it from the graveyard again. It gives you a 2/2 zombie for every black you have available.
Mm-hmm. And crazy.
Yeah, which I've mostly used in I had a game against Death and Taxes, I think, where they had like a Mirror Crusader and a small Thalia and a big Thalia.
Okay.
They were hitting me with the Mirror Crusader. And I was like trying to build a board big enough to get around their Thalia so I could just kill them in one hit.
It still seems like a good
Because I was at a point.
like, board for your idiots if you're on the idiot plan. Because even like the big Thalia's got fast strike and it's a 3 power, right? So even that kind of blocks Bridgevine. I don't know. I'm just thinking about how this board state and how we assail it here.
Yeah, so Bridgevine's pretty bad against this board state, but Bridge from Below is very good. And I have a Bridge from Below, and I have a Viscera Seer, and I have a Gravecrawler, and I'm just sitting there making like 2 or 3 zombies a turn, and scrying, and the scries are fairly irrelevant because I have a Golden Bushwhacker in my hand, so I'm just kind of like, I'm gonna make zombies until you die, and then I'm just gonna kill you in one hit, and then I did that. But basically the deck has a lot of play to it and a lot of different lines.
Okay.
And the major decision points with the construction of the deck, aside from do you want to play Corpse Churn, do you want to play a few other things, Corpse Churn is much better than it looks. People look at it and they're like, oh, that's that common from Oath of the Gatewatch Limited, but buying back 0 costs, milling 3 is quite powerful in the deck, just to have more graveyard velocity. Buying back your 0 costs, buying back your Stitch Suppliers, buying back even your Insolent Neonates can be good sometimes. The most exciting thing is to buy back Bushwhackers, because sometimes you mill one and you're like, oh, you know what I really could do with here? Bushwhacker to end the game. And you go to end of turn Corpse Churn, bring back Bushwhacker, untap, Bushwhacker you. So that card's actually pretty interesting, and I've had a reasonable success with it. I have tried Gargadons, but I have never seen them.
Okay.
So it's hard for me to say anything, but basically they are interesting. I think a 2 is maybe right. If you're going to play them, you should probably play 2.
Cool.
It is slightly worse than Viscera Seer in a lot of matchups, because it doesn't trigger Vengevine.
Right.
But it is better than Viscera Seer in matchups where Viscera Seer is commonly killed.
Right.
So, control matchups and very spot removal heavy matchups, where Viscera Seer is kind of less good because you have to end up sacking a bunch of other stuff alongside your Viscera Seer. Whereas your Gargadon, you just have it. And then against those matchups, you're also kind of interested in okay, eventually, if the game goes long, I make a 9/7 with haste.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then the main big decision is whether or not you want your mana base to have 2 green sources in it, which has been mostly what I see is 2 green sources. Having 2 means that you can hardcast Vengevine if it comes to it, which makes you slightly better against the graveyard hate as well, because again, you can have the Idiot's Plan, then you can also just have the alright, I got the 4 mana, cast 4 3s with haste.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, is your hand the nuts? If you have the nuts of Grave Hate and a very good hand at playing a game of Magic, then probably can't win, but I think a lot of people can't win if someone has a very good card against them, and then also very good cards in general. So yeah, it's whether or not you want to do that, and then in addition, if you're doing that, you can also play enchantment removal in your sideboard, which allows you to beat a Rest in Peace or a Resolve Rest in Peace or a Lair of the Void without having to resort to being a bit dorky.
Yeah, and so
it sounds a bit no-brainery to do this, but I think it is a real decision because the deck's mana requirements are actually quite stringent.
Yeah, because it plays. This is what I was going to say. Because just covering the mana base off real quick. So it seems you play again. Stop me if I'm wrong. I'm just going through lists and that kind of stuff. You play. Was it 4 Blackcleave Cliffs, 4 Bloodstained Mire, and then 4 kind of red fetch, I think is the rule, because you have a basic mountain, so red fetch, a basic mountain, and then 4 blood crypt, which is just I don't know, that just seems a bit absurd to me in modern, but I mean you're just so fast, and as you say, you're playing all these 1 mana spells, and you really need to have just enough red and black pips in order to cast all the cards, because if you for some reason challenged on them and you can't, I don't know, bring your Vengevine back because you can't get double black or something silly like that, then it gets really, really tough.
Yeah. So the main thing is basically that you commonly want to cast like a Neonate or a Faithless Looting on turn 1, or a Stitcher Supplier. And then you want to be able to, very commonly you need double black on turn 2, because you want to be able to cast Gravecrawler and Stitcher Supplier, for example, or Viscera Seer and Stitcher Supplier. So, like, having red-black, or black-black, or sometimes red-red, are all reasonable things to need on turn 2. And then you also need to be able to hit red-red for Goblin Bushwhacker. Goblin Bushwhacker is the main thing that prevents you from splashing green, in my opinion.
True, yeah, because it's red for the initial cost and red for the kicker, obviously. It's just...
Yeah. Basically, it means that, like, it means Blood Crypt is your best land by far. Well, actually, Black Leafy Cliffs is your best land by far, but, like, Blood Crypt is your best fetchable land by far. And there is no, like, green land that does everything. Like, not Verdant Catacombs, that's the fetch. Overgrown Tomb doesn't cast any of your red spells, obviously. And Stomping Ground doesn't cast any of your black spells.
Yep.
So if you end up with a hand with, like, Stomping Ground fetch in it, you're like, okay, I guess I'll fetch this Blood Crypt. But this hat has 3 black spells in it, and what I want to do is go black spell turn 1, 2 black spells turn 2, but I can't. And that's really important, because I need to cast 2 spells in this turn. Ugh.
And by kind of deck building for the post-board games, you can neuter your game 1s, which is what you're supposed to be doing initially, and then, you slow in game 1s, and then it's pretty horrible.
Yeah, I'm not...
Sacrifice, basically, by the sounds of it.
Yeah, I'm not super against splashing green, I just think it's like a real cost. And I think a lot of people look at it and go, oh, this deck's bad against Leyline. I'll play green. But, like, you don't necessarily need the green, and it does, like, impact your game 1s. And your game 2s and 3s, obviously. Like, the mana issues still come up there. But, like, the game 1s are the sort of semi-more important ones, I guess, because you also get the bonus game 2 and 3 from having the enchantment removal in your deck.
Right. Then, what kind of piece do you want? As I said, this person's playing 4 Destructive Revelry, which seems like
I'm pretty into Revelry.
Yeah, Revelry seems...
I think the original Green Splashes played Nature's Claim.
Just for efficiency, yeah.
Yeah, just because it 1 mana. But giving your opponent 4 life, like, to be able to use the graveyard isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I do think Revelry fits better with the game plan. And I'm kind of more into Revelry right now.
Yeah, sounds cool.
I don't think Nature's Claim is necessarily wrong, though, but not necessarily right either.
Well, it's like efficiency versus, obviously, the life swaying on how you want to play.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Okay, well, I'm just looking at what else we've got to cover here on the list.
I mean, I think basically the takeaway, if anyone takes anything away from this, it's that this deck is, like, very real.
Yeah.
And they need to be prepared for it in the coming, like, weeks, I think. Like, I think this is going to have a breakout event at some point relatively soon, and people are going to realize that, like, this isn't a fringe, like, weirdo Vengevine deck. This is the real deal.
Could be this week.
I think it's better than Dredge. I think it... maybe. I'm not sure it's, like, the sort of thing people will take to a PT.
Sure.
But maybe not. But, like, I think it's better than Dredge in this metagame. I think it's giving Hollow One a run for its money in a lot of places. I think it's better than Hollow One against humans, for example, which I think is a really big deal.
Yeah.
I also think it's better than Hollow One against Storm and KCI. I don't think it's good against Storm and KCI, though.
Okay, I see.
I think it's just that your nut draws are nuttier, so having those in your arsenal allows you to sometimes get games off of these guys.
Look really fast, like, versus Storm is the thing, right? Because that's what Storm's kind of, rep is or whatever. It's what, like 3.5 or something like that. And
yeah,
it does seem like it could go under it. I mean, I'm not saying consistently or anything, and I totally trust your judgment, obviously, because you've actually...
Yeah, so I mean, so my issue in games that I've played has been that they can just, like, play their dork on turn 2.
Right.
And you can't do anything about it.
Sure.
So they are going to kill you on turn 3 an enormous amount of the time.
Right, I see what you mean.
So you need to be on the play.
I see.
Yeah. I also believe that bringing in Thought Seizers in that matchup is incorrect.
I mean, that makes sense to me.
I think it's something a lot of people will do when they first look at the list, and they're like, oh, Thoughtseize, that card's good against Storm, like, I should bring in my Thoughtseizes. I actually think you should bring in your Ley Lines, and maybe your Collective Brutalities if you have them, and nothing else.
Okay, that makes sense.
I think you should bring in your Ley Lines to, like, slow them down, and Collective Brutality allows you to punish the, like, I'll play my Goblin Electromancer on turn 2, you go, like, lines they sometimes take. Although they often take against you.
A lot of Storm decks, like, and this is my experience in playing, like, heavy Collective Brutality lists, are dropping Electromancer numbers in favour of Baral, and it's just, I mean, it's kind of here nor there in this particular discussion, but it's just to say that, like...
Yeah, I mean, I also think that the important point... So the important point about Thoughtseize is that you just don't have enough hand disruption to make it worth it.
Yeah, that's
like, Thoughtseizing Storm once just isn't going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And you are slowing yourself down by casting a Thoughtseize in the early turns.
And that goes for all black decks in Modern, it's something to be aware of.
Yeah.
I mean, and, for anyone who's not aware, Storm is so critical mass based compared to, I don't know, something like a Breach deck, or, like it's not a 1+1 deck, obviously.
I mean, the thing is, like, if you're Jund or Grixis, for example, you can go, like, Thoughtseize you, turn 2 play a threat, turn 3, Thoughtseize you, or, like, Inquisition, or, mix in some, because you're playing, like, 8 discard spells at that point.
Yeah.
So, like, those decks can Thoughtseize Storm to a degree out of the game. But if you're bringing in, like, your 3 Thoughtseizes from the sideboard, it's just never going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
You just, like, sometimes you'll get a game where you, like, Thoughtseize their gifts ungiven and they never find anything else, but post-board they're going to bring in their pieces of the puzzle, because, like, unless they're really stupid, they're going to realize that you have Leyline of the Void, and, like, you're just not going to be able to take them off of payoff cards. It's just not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to accept that that's not good, that, like, Thoughtseizing them is just not what the game is about, and just be about killing them as fast as possible.
Yep, go on.
Leyline of the Void is still, I think, important because it, like, does slow them down a degree. But I think Storm is still a hard matchup. I think KCI is still a hard matchup.
The other thing about
Leyline is obviously... Leyline's important for KCI, definitely, almost more than Storm, because their backup plan is less good.
Absolutely.
You still need to kill them fast, because they can just, like, nature's claim you.
Yeah. And there's something...
But it's still good, though.
Tempo there, obviously, which is that, Leyline's free. Like, you're not spending your turn 1 doing something to disrupt them. You're just like, oh, okay, I'm going to put this into play. And, yeah, as you said, they're significantly slower after that. And, you can, it makes it easier to go underneath them. But there's no tempo loss as a result. I just also really like playing Leylines with lootings. Like, just as a principle. That's really cool.
Yeah, Leylines and lootings, no Leylines with brainstorms.
Mm-hmm.
That's your rules. But yeah, so takeaways from this section is this deck is real, and the best ways to beat it are generally Leyline of the Void, Rest in Peace, being a fast combo deck, or hoping that you get lucky and the deck loses to itself, because it does do that sometimes. Like, the deck is shockingly fast, but does have a fail rate. And you do have games where you just don't do anything. Like, I had a game where I turned over half of my deck into the graveyard, and I didn't see a single Vine or a Bridge. And I was just never going to win that game. It was just, like, not happening.
Yeah, of course.
Because I could never get an engine going.
You've played, what I was going to ask is, you've played Hollow One and this Bridgevine contraption thing. What would you say the kind of... Do you have enough data to look at kind of respective fail rates there, and you keeping track of when you lose to yourself?
I do not think I have enough data to look at respective fail rates. Really, I think that Bridgevine probably has a slightly higher fail rate than Hollow One, because Hollow One's. I think Bridgevine has a slightly higher fail rate than Hollow One, but I think that Bridgevine's backup plan is slightly better than Hollow One's backup plan.
Okay.
I think Bushwhacker is better than hard-casting Flamewake Phoenixes. But you will be Bushwhackering people more often with Bridgevine than you would be hard-casting Flamewake Phoenixes as your, like, only threat with Hollow One. Like, Hollow One is quite good at putting a 4 or 5 power creature into play. Bridgevine is reasonably good at doing that. It is definitely good enough to still be worth playing, and it's definitely good enough to still be good. But you will lose some number of games to variance.
Yep.
Just like in any Magic deck, but this deck, when you lose your games to variance, you won't do very much.
Right, and I think that always sort of feels worse to people, but that doesn't mean that, like, it's any worse than, you know, a standard deck's kind of fail rate in that respect when, you know, I don't know, you're the mid-range deck that draws the wrong bit of your deck against whatever you're playing against.
Yeah, you're the mid-range deck that draws all your fatal pushes against the, like, creatureless blue-white control deck. You're like, boom, alright.
Doing it.
Should have a Sock and Fireblood right now.
Just faith. Man. It's fine.
Yeah, that's not like mulliganing at all. But yeah, the deck is really interesting and cool, has a bunch of different play to it, and I would definitely expect to see it getting more and more refined and more play as time goes by. So I think it's definitely something you need to be aware of at your modern events. And like people just need to be backing Learn on the Void. This deck is... Me and you have had this conversation, Dan, but not on the podcast, I think, about like stuff like Nile Spellbomb versus stuff like Learn on the Void. And this deck is like the prime example of my position of like, just play a Leyline.
Just play Leyline. Absolutely.
Like, don't hadfoot around with one-shot effects that are kind of good against the fair decks. Just, like, kill them. Just put a permanent into play that says you don't have a graveyard against the graveyard decks, and accept that you're not going to bring that in against, like, the fair decks, because you don't need it. Like, you don't necessarily care enough about turning off their Snapcaster activation once, or making the life of it awkward with your Nile Spellbomb and cycling it, and that's all great. You just want to kill them.
Absolutely. And you want to do it on turn 0 before they put the 2 Vengevines into play on turn 1.
Yeah. I will say that Spellbomb and Relic Progenitus effects can be okay against Bridgevine if you are yourself a relatively fast deck, like Rix's Shadow, for example, where you're like, oh, I just need to like buy myself a turn. I just need to make it so that they have to they have to bring back a Vengevine or put a Bridgevine Blow in the graveyard into my Spellbomb, and then I get to Spellbomb it. And then, because of their lost, tempo, I just get to kill them. That's okay. But I do not personally believe that Mardu is that kind of deck.
Absolutely.
I just don't think that you can... I don't think you can have a single turn where you get to be like, alright, and now I'm going to kill you. Because you're not putting, 1 mana 9/9s into play.
No, I think if it was, a debating point when, it was just Hollow One you had to worry about, then, maybe. But I think with this thing and everything else that's happening at the moment, I'd definitely be sleeping 4 ley lines going into a tournament. And I don't even think, you can talk about, Thoughtseize, Surgical, synergies, and whatever. I don't care. I would just be playing.
Yeah. I think Surgical is quite bad right now. In Modern.
Yep, absolutely. And,
it's bad against this deck, in my opinion, because it's just so hard to Surgical, the right things. Surgicaling Bridges... still kind of leaves them the dorky beat you up plan, and also leaves them the Vengevine plan. If you Surgical Vengevines, it leaves them with the bridge plans. You kind of need to draw multiple Surgicals at the right time, because if they get the Vengevines into play, you need to have killed them.
To not lose to the Idiot plan.
Yeah, I think the Surgical is just quite...
nothing else going on.
And if you're paying 2 life to, stop me from doing things.
Absolutely, the 2 life is super, super relevant, you're right. So, play Leyline, kids.
I do think so. Surgical is specifically okay against Storm and KCI, but I think other than that, a lot of the graveyard decks are just too redundant.
Yeah, KCI is a good point actually, but still a lot. Yeah, still gotta do a lot. So that's Bridgevine. As you've said, be aware of it. I really do think that it's going to be. I mean, it's already picking up a lot of momentum. As we said, there's a lot of discussion around the deck with people fine tuning the 75s. And it's almost certainly a player, and it's really, really, it's really, really interesting. So we kind of wanted to do a little bit of a showcase on the deck for you guys. So I hope that's been good.
It's cool that the printing of Stitch as a player just made this deck happen.
Absolutely.
I don't want to downplay the efforts of the guy who built it. I think his name is JDM. This is what he goes by online. and he's like a pretty sick human. Like, building this and Hollow One is kind of insane.
That's unreal creativity. Absolutely.
But at the same time, like, the printing of Stitcher Supplier is definitely like the key event that led to this deck coming into like prominence.
Yeah, you've still got to be like enough of a madman to just stick all of these Hangaback Walkers and Walking Ballistas in your deck and all this other kind of stuff that's going on. But absolutely, it's none of this is possible without this little one drop.
Like, it's just literally everything that a Vengevine Bridge from Below deck wants. It's like a body, it's a small body that you want to kill. It's a cheap creature. It mills you twice.
Yeah,
it's like, that card's so good. I'm just really into that card right now.
I know, it's just really, really cool. And this deck is really, really cool. So we will put a deck list up for whatever Nathaniel's playing in the show notes.
I've been trying the Gargadon 2 Bloodghast versions recently.
Okay.
I'm not sure how I feel about them. All the 75s feel so untuned, it's too hard. I haven't been playing a Green Splash for a while, but maybe I'll try one of those again and see how it feels.
Okay, cool. Well, that's all good stuff. And, we can kind of keep tabs on that, because I don't know, I think it's really interesting watching something get built up from the ground up and the momentum picking up and all that stuff. So I'll certainly be quizzing you again next week if you've got any more games under your belt. Between now and then, it's the PT 25th anniversary Team PT, which is pretty exciting. So let's quickly go into, and we're not going to make any kind of hard predictions or anything like that, but I do kind of want to just go over the formats real quick and talk about what we're expecting and everything. Standard. So I've not played much Standard since Nats, but looking at what's going on, it doesn't seem to have shifted too much. I think the one really interesting thing that's happened is it does seem like Mono Red has fallen off a cliff a little bit. There's a lot less results in the last couple of weeks with Mono Red, but I'm not really sure. What do you think?
I mean, I think that Green got really good.
Yeah, Green's hella good.
And started playing cards like Thornhide Elemental.
Yep.
And that's not the name of the card. Thorny Lieutenant?
Oh, left-handed, yeah.
Thorn Boy?
Yeah, Thorn Boy.
Thornhide Lieutenant? What is Thornhide Elemental?
I don't know.
It's not a thing, is it?
You're thinking about
it's not a thing.
Elemental.
Maybe I am.
I'm not sure where the hide's coming in.
I'm going to look it up. But no, yeah, they started. I was Thornhide Wolves.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
what it was.
Come on.
Bam. Solved it. Green started playing this 5-mana 4/5, and it's just crushing.
Beatable.
It's just annihilating the competition. No, so I started playing stuff like Thorn Lieutenant, and like, I don't know, Vine Mare, I don't think is even. I guess it's pretty bad against red.
Yeah, Vine Mare's like, whatever. The thing about the green decks, and I played it at Nats, and I think I'm going to be playing it in Brussels, is that I was always worried when introducing Vine Mare into my main decks as to the concession that I make in the red matchup. Because, I mean, it's still okay as the thing. It's not absolutely terrible against red, but
it's still a magic card that does things.
Exactly. And it can close the game pretty quickly, which is pretty cool. But, it gets blocked by Chainwhirler pretty damn well. It doesn't block very well, so I was like, eh. But the thing is, you can just do it. The rest of your deck is just so good. Like, Greenbelt Rampager and Thrashing Brontodon are both just really, really good magic cards in the matchup, so...
And don't get started on Steely Champion. That card's sick against red.
That's the card, right? I mean, turn 2 Steely Champion is pretty much what I want to do right now. But, so there's green, which is causing red to get out muscle a little bit. Red-black's still around in a good percentage. There's a whole wash of Grixis decks. We're playing...
Good old Grixis mess.
Great.
Do you want to be a red-black Grixis or blue-black Grixis? No one's playing blue-red Grixis, are they?
No, but there's still... I mean, the mono-red Bolas deck, the Jerry T.
Oh, yeah, sure, the Chainwhirler Bolas.
Still making some waves. It's still kind of around. There's a lot of Virtuoso decks popping up at the moment.
Ooh, I love Virtuoso. Virtuoso's my boy.
I think Todd Stevens got a 5-0 recently, and it's oh no, but this isn't a version of Virtuoso. Looking through these decks on Goldfish is an absolute headache because they all get classified under different buckets despite playing the same cards, and the same buckets despite playing different cards. But all this just to say that I think if you put them all together, that is the main player in the metagame, I'd probably say at the moment. Then there's all your Esper controls, your blue-white controls, which are still around to a degree. Gift decks are on the fringes, but there's not quite so many results. I mean, the same can be said about Snake, but let's not talk about Snake. And, there's this weird... we talked about Storm in the past, so let's cover Storm off real quick. What do you think about Storm?
Storm's sick, man. I think Storm's really good. No, I think Storm's really good.
Okay, cool.
I think that it's slightly weak against green, and if green wants to start targeting it, then it would become very bad against green. But I think that it's like fair game plan of just being like, all right, here's a Psy, here's 20 Thopters, is like really good. Khan has become very good in the deck, and your ability to kill people with East Flux Reservoir is like about as consistent as it's ever been.
Okay.
I think the deck's just like actually very good.
I will say that having played green against Storm, the non-Steel Leaf games on the non-Quick Galta games can feel very weird. Because, as you've said, like, if they just stop to spam you and you're just doing normal Magic the Gathering things rather than the unblockable 5/4 or the giant monster very, very fast, then things get really, really messy really, really fast. Because you can't Heart of Kirin them either, so you really need to hit these cards.
Psy just adds like this whole element to the deck that it was missing, where it forces people to have removal spells for him, but also most of the removal spells that are cheaper than him don't kill him.
Yeah, because
so it's just all the red stuff. Doesn't deal 4 damage, except that you have to have a cut to kill him. And then there's all of the like white stuff that doesn't kill things that are untapped. So you're never attacking with him, right? So it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And then the black stuff doesn't kill legendary creatures, or it doesn't kill 3-cost creatures. So he dodges all of that, and then I guess he also dodges, like, edicts, because he makes a bunch of 1/1s.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to, like, spend your 4-mana removal spell on him, unless, again, you're explicitly playing Cut to Ribbons.
Like Vraska's Contempting him or whatever, which is...
Yeah, but then, like, if you're forcing these Vraska's Contempt decks to keep in their Vraska's Contempts against your Aetherflux Reservoir Storm deck, that's insane!
Yeah, no, it absolutely is.
And then Khan's just really good when you make like 15 Thopters.
Yes. Always. Yes.
People are starting to splash red in the Storm lists for Joyra.
Ooh. Okay. That's kind of
I'm kind of into.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just makes you like finding your reservoir like much more consistent, because you can just be like, all right, Joyra, Ornithopter, Moxamber, draw a bunch of cards, make a bunch of Thopters off this crazy Psy boy that I got going.
The list at the top 8 of the Classic was playing Time of Ice on the board as well.
Ooh,
so,
that's pretty spicy.
I mean...
I'm not a big fan of the word spicy when used in terms of Magic cards, but
yeah,
that is it.
If you're going to... Yeah, I don't know. If you're going to come at me with Baral's expertise in Time of Ice, then I'm going to cry. So, yeah, okay. For the PT, I mean, I don't know. I think a really good percentage of Bolas. I'm actually really intrigued to see how the red decks do.
I think I saw someone tweet about this, but I mostly agree that maybe they didn't tweet, maybe they answered a question on a Discord somewhere. I don't remember. Somebody said something along these lines that was like, someone asked them what the narrative would be post PT, and they said it will be, where did all the chain whirlers go? Yeah,
and that's kind of what I'm feeling, like, especially with the mono red kind of taking a bit of a nosedive. That's obviously a huge percentage of your chain whirler decks, and I do still think there will be a healthy amount of red black, but nothing like what we've seen in recent weeks. So that's kind of exciting, As I said, the Bolas mess is messy, and there will be a lot of Bolas. So if you don't like watching, the new Siege Rhino.
Do you guys remember Siege Rhino? Remember that card? Man, it took us way too long to realise the Bolas was just Siege Rhino.
So that,
all the signs are there. It costs 3 different colours of mana, and then 1 generic. Has 4 power, and then an evasion ability. Does something when it enters the battlefield. Except this one also, I think we all got, blinded. We were like, oh, it turns into a Planeswalker. And then people were like, oh, but only at sorcery speed, so your opponent can kill it and you get blown out. And I'm like, it's Siege Rhino! I haven't been saying that before. I can't say, I knew it was Siege Rhino from the beginning. Oh, but, that's what it is.
Yeah.
I guess it's legendary, but still, it's just Siege Rhino. But Grixis now. So that's exciting. Yeah, I'm looking forward to Siege Rhino, but Grixis now, the Pro Tour. I would expect to see some amount of Storm. I would expect to see some amount of Control, and I would expect to see some amount of Green. I am actually more excited about this Pro Tour's standard portion than I was about last Pro Tour's standard portion.
We'll be watching other formats too.
I'm definitely going more into other formats. Modern is a minefield mess. It is impossible to call what people are playing in Modern. Surely there must be a bunch of KCI players.
Okay, so let's talk about the highlights rather than trying to... I don't want to analyze this a bit too much.
There's so many Modern decks.
Yeah.
People will play humans, and people will play KCI, and people will play weird control decks because they like them.
Quick hits, without going into too much detail. Humans getting Bugler is so big and turns so many of its poor matchups into much closer to 50, if not 50, and that is very, very scary. So Bugler's big, and you don't have to play stupid cards anymore, like Angel, and Bugler's great. Jeskai Control and Blue-White Control will be there in good quantities, I feel, and
probably better quantities than they deserve, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I also think that as a result, because they will show up in those quantities, we'll see them get results. Whether or not that's something or anything, I'm not sure.
I mean, it's also a team event, right? So individual decks getting results is hard to judge.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Then what we've got, KCI, as we've said, there's kind of Infect and Affinity, Mardu Pyro, Tron, Storm, and, I don't know, Lunatics playing Death Shadow.
Yeah, maybe.
So this all...
I mean, I think that it would actually be kind of mad to not play KCI if you have a reasonable KCI player.
Agreed. Yeah.
I just think that deck... So we've been talking about Bridgevine a lot, but I do think that in the immediate term, the most busted Modern deck is KCI, and you should play that.
Yeah, if you can play it, and you've got the reps in, and you put the work in, then it's very difficult to justify another deck, I feel.
I think so. I also think it's I'm mostly not even sure that the deck is as hard as it's being hyped up to be. Sure. I think it has some weird rules interactions, and I think that mechanically it is taxing from a actually picking up cards standpoint.
Right.
When you go off with Storm, and you can you can go cool, I have 6 mana floating, I cast a Gifts Ungiven. You're dead. I have a Dork in play. My opponent's dead. Yeah. Nothing to do. They're going to die. Assuming that this resolves and
if they else flowchart where all the conditions are met. Yeah.
And in addition to that, mechanically, that doesn't take a very long time. Because you go, cool, Gifts, search up the normal pile, put it in place. Okay, you give me these 2. Blah, 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 do this. Cast all my rituals. Turn all my rituals in my graveyard sideways and move them into the exile zone. Kill you with this grape shot. Storm doesn't take a very long time to kill people. So even if they don't concede to you, you just kind of go, all right, I'm just going to do this. Mm-hmm. KCI doesn't, and just has way less deterministic kills.
Sure.
Sometimes you go, cool, this is a loop. But sometimes, more of the time, you spend a long time, drawing cards looking for a loop. Yeah. Drawing cards is mechanically taxing, and importantly, you spend a lot of time moving cards from your graveyard to your hand, to the battlefield, to the graveyard, to your hand, to the battlefield. Which just, again, takes time. Mm-hmm. You have to be all right, I'll do this, pick this up, I'll put this down, I'll put it in the bin, I'll pick it up, I'll put it down, I'll put it in the bin. It's often different cards each time. So I actually think that while KCI is still a difficult deck, I think its difficulty is slightly overblown, and that actually the biggest stumbling block is, in paper, can you mechanically carry out these kills in enough time?
Mm-hmm. I do think that a lot of the time is spent explaining what you're doing to your opponent in sort of a GP setting. Say, like...
maybe.
I don't know, like, I think that there's a fair amount of opponents having not played against KCI much and wanting to ask you what you're doing. And I know that it's daft because they probably don't have a way of interacting, and it's just up to you to kind of, like, you know, figure out what you're doing on your end. But if they think they can, or whatever, and obviously you don't, you know, if you don't know what's in their hand and all that kind of stuff, like, it's difficult to not be, like, talking through what you're doing and everything if that's what your opponent wants you to do. Which is, like...
That's definitely true.
Yeah, which is, like, a whole bunch of kind of layers as well of stuff that you need to do while you're doing the other thing. And therein lies more time on the clock, potentially missed triggers, if whatever. But I think you're right, though. I do think that the difficulty is being overblown, and I think that if you sat with the deck or even, you know, a pilot that's reasonably familiar, then you could learn a lot in the short amount of time just kind of talking.
It reminds me of Lantern Control.
Mm-hmm.
Like, last season before the unbans. It wasn't last season. I don't know, just before the unbans happened, and everyone was talking about Lantern, and it was suddenly becoming this big deck that a lot of people were playing, and like it was getting good results, and people were talking about banning it and all sorts of stuff. And previously, people have been like, "Oh, well, we'll never need to ban Lantern because it's so hard. So, you know, who's going to play it?" It's like, turns out, if a deck is good, people will learn to play it. Like, it can't be that hard.
Mm-hmm.
Difficulty can't only be so much of a stumbling block. People will eventually just learn how to play the deck. Like, if the deck is really good, people will go, okay, cool, I'll just put in the reps.
Yeah. So,
I think that, I don't know, I think KCI is being slightly overblown in the same way that Lantern was. Where people are like, oh, but it's so hard to play. So how will anyone play it? It's like, I don't know, by practicing it. It's just a magic deck. the cards just do things.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not... I think arguably it is... I mean, I don't know, better than Lantern is like...
It's definitely better than Lantern right now.
But, like, yeah, right now, that's my point. Like, you always have the caveat of, like, the context you're in and blah, blah, blah. The KCI is just so proactive and just does its thing, and yeah.
Yeah.
Spirits is bad. Other headlines.
Is it bad?
I think it's bad. I don't know.
Okay.
Like, looking at Spirits, it just... Basically, I think that...
But damn! Damn, they're playing Spell Queller.
I know. And
how bad can they possibly be? That card is so sick.
So there's two things, and this is mentioned on the game podcast, actually last week, I think. I think that this deck probably needs to be considering Bugler as well, because I think it's that good. And I also think that a lot of what the Spirits players would say when you were asked, "Oh, why aren't you playing humans?" They'd be like, "Oh, but I've got all this flash stuff and it's Coco, and I can play against Wraths and stuff, and I'm good against Supreme Verdict." And it's like, well, I mean,
the actual answer to why aren't you playing humans is like Spell Queller. I think.
Sure, I agreed, but
I don't think that's like a good answer. I'm just saying that I think that's the real answer. Right. If you're looking for one, if you're like, yeah, okay, I'm playing with Wraths a bit better, and I get to do these funky flash things. I was like, no. Spirits get Spell Queller. That is their big advantage.
But
if they get to be like, okay, cool, we have stack interaction, and really sick stack interaction against a lot of decks.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Like,
and I'm not.
It's a lot of decks in Modern. Like, against Bridgevine, man, Spell Queller is pretty nuts.
Yeah,
it's just a 3-mana 2/3 Mystic Snake that kills your opponent because they don't have any flying blockers. Oh, and the Lord. I actually do think the Lord is like pretty cool.
Yeah, Supreme Phantom.
Yeah.
Guy. He's definitely cool. I don't know, man. I think
1/3 is like a weird, powerful stat line for a Lord.
For sure. Basically, I'm not convinced. Is what I'm saying.
Okay. I'm not super convinced either. I just think that like if you're going to play Spirits, you're playing it because it gets to play Spell Queller. And that's your reason.
Okay, and I think that's a good reason. I mean, I think it's a good reason, then you should play Spirit. I just think that is the reason if there is one. Sorry. I don't know, man. If I was into this kind of thing, I would definitely be on the humans bugler train. But anywho,
I mean, I think humans is also actually quite a good deck to play. I just think that I think KCI is a leg above everybody else.
Yep, and I would say that those are probably the two options. I think if you really, really want to play the best deck right now in this context, la-di-da. But we'll see what the PT yields. Let's talk about Legacy real quick.
Okay, Legacy is going to be interesting. It's going to be the first major event of this format, I think. I guess was an MKM or something?
Yeah,
there was MKM and there was some SCG events.
Yeah, that's what MKM and there was SCG team event, which is where Bob played Sneak and Show.
Bob played Sneak and Show. Noah Walker played Bomac Grixis. And a few other people played a few other different decks. Had a lot of Rug in it. Had a lot of D&T in it. Had some Miracles. There's a lot of decks in Legacy right now that are pretty good. We've taken a weird jump back in time in some cases.
Yep.
Where, hey, Rug's good again.
D&T is good. Stoneblade's really good. Sneak and Show will be there in fairly big numbers.
I think Sneak and Show is probably the best deck in the format right now.
I think that's a pretty fair assessment.
I think that because of that, I think it should show up in reasonable numbers. According to all the Storm pilots I know, Storm got way better and is now really good. But they're also really good Storm players.
Yeah.
So
I think we'll see some Storm, but we won't see it.
We definitely will.
Potentially, I don't know the percentages that you might see maybe online. I do think that there's a fair amount of Storm online compared to paper.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
So yeah, I mean that's definitely a consideration. Again, the Stoneforge decks will be there, Miracles will be there. I think that there's going to be a good amount of Grixis control just based on people wanting to play this kind of archetype. I think the jury's still pretty much out on this. I mean, and we've talked about this in time, but I think if your crutch against the Sneak and Shows and the Reanimators and everything is 3 him to Torak, then I don't know,
I'm super not into these Grixis control lists. They just feel like the smart Legacy player trap deck.
No, I agree with you, and as much as I respect I listen to the Brainstorm show, I'm looking at their list. I think it's a bit mental, but I mean, time will still tell. The jury's still out on a bunch of things. But my instinct here is that some of these lists are playing Flusterstorm in the main, and if that's your concession, then I'm a little concerned for the deck as a whole.
I mean, you can play narrower cards in your main deck with access to all these cantrips. And it's not like Flusterstorm is a bad card in a lot of Legacy matchups.
For sure.
It can be poor, but it can also be very good. It comes in a lot of spots out of the sideboard, and it does a lot of very powerful things.
Yeah.
I just still think
it's such a kind of it's just a very obvious crutch, is my point.
Sure. I still think I agree with you that
I do like it. I'm playing a deck that's playing a good healthy amount of main deck Pierce, but I do think that there is also a difference there in terms of hey.
Oh, Pierce is super different to Flusterstorm. Pierce counters Chalice of the Void.
Exactly, and that's why I'm just much happier with it as a card. And this just feels like a crutch. That's all I was trying to say by pointing it out.
Sure, no, I dig that. I think that the decks struggle a lot against combo, from what I can see. And they just struggle to put a clock on, really. Because their clock card is, in some cases, Gurmag Angler. And I'm not even sure I'm excited about Gurmag Angler if white decks are good, again, because then you have to deal with your Gurmag getting Source of Plowshares a lot.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, I actually don't think there's any, aside from Sneak and Show, I don't think there's any, standout crazy good decks.
Still kind of not being determined. I think that we're sort of slowly getting to a point where we understand what the quote unquote tiers, as much as I don't like talking about that, look like. But I do think that you're right in that Sneak and Show is very obviously kind of wrecking things at the moment. But I do want to kind of mention that Sneak and Show is always going to be like the quote unquote like red deck wins of Legacy when things are this. And I think, as I said, I do think we are getting a bit more stable, but things are still a little bit unstable right now. We are still kind of figuring things out. And it is...
Sure, when everyone's trying different stuff and playing unrefined lists, trying to do weird things, you just throw spaghetti at them.
Exactly. You throw spaghetti.
You just go, all right, turn to show and tell. Make a spaghetti. Do you die to spaghetti? And they go, oh, yes, I died to spaghetti. And they're like, all right, cool. Get spaghetted.
Wrap it up.
Whereas, Sneak and Show definitely is like the fast aggro deck that beats up on a lot of nonsense because people don't like. It's hard to pack proper hate for it, and additionally, I mean, specifically, I do think Sneak and Show got a lot better as a deck with the banning of the 2 cards that did get banned. Because hey, would you look at that? Sneak and Show's bad matchup, Grixis Delver, became way worse and stopped being the best deck in the meta and started being like kind of a weird deck that people are trying to make work, but like there's no really clear consensus on what the best build for it is yet. And like, hey, if your biggest predator goes away, you're gonna get better. You're gonna be a better deck.
Sure.
And Reanimator is kind of like that deck is so that deck also is very good against Sneak and Show.
Yeah,
and it's kind of gone away a bit in a weird way. Not because of the Deathlight Shaman banning, but because I think of the response after it, where people were like, all right. Guess we'll play a lot of Graveyard Hate. Guess we'll play all of our all of our surgicals, and we won't skimp on anything, and like we'll actually just like try and have the hate review. So the deck was really big for the first couple of weeks. Actually, I think just for the first week online, and it kind of disappeared. And now, like,
it's still around, obviously, but
it's still there. I think it's still even good.
I think so.
But people bring a lot more hate, and it's perceived to have like gone down a bit in popularity and strength. Although I think it's still strong, but it's definitely gone down in popularity. But yeah, like if your like big predators go away, you're gonna get better as a deck. Like I'm not necessarily sure. Like I don't think that Sneak and Show is gonna be the best deck in the meta forever. But I don't buy the it's just because it's red deck wins that it's good.
Yeah, no.
I think it's also good because like the discard plus clock decks went away, which was always the biggest thing for D&T for Sneak and Show.
Exactly, discard plus clock. That's the key. Infect's showing up in reasonable numbers, and I think it would be quite cool to get it if we can get it on camera this weekend, because Legacy Infect is really cool.
Legacy Infect is cool. Legacy Infect's a fun deck that like it's one of those fun ones to show like the difference between Legacy and Modern. I think where it has this direct counterpart. We are like, oh yeah, Modern Infect, that's cool. Yeah, it does all these things, and you're like, what does Legacy Infect do? And it's like, it kills you with like 2 pump spells.
Yeah.
And they don't have to be permanent.
I do think that the Modern Infect for the record, but the I don't know. This deck's just really cool. Like it plays
Invigorate and Berserk, especially Invigorate, is just like an unreasonable magic card, especially when your creatures deal poison rather than regular damage.
Yeah. For anyone who doesn't know, Invigorate, I'm going to mention its mana cost, even it does not matter. 2 and a green, instant. If you control a forest, rather than pay Invigorate's mana cost, you may have an opponent gain 3 life. Target creature gets +4/+4 until end of turn. Oof.
Notably, Invigorate plus Berserk. Berserk is basically double target creature's power until end of turn. It dies at end of combat. Invigorate plus Berserk is just a straight up immediate kill with an infect creature because they become 5 power and then they become 10 power. And you said its mana cost doesn't matter, but it sort of does because it allows them to play through a chalice.
Yes, no, that's true.
And it doesn't get spell snared.
Yeah. Which is all super relevant. You're right. I mean, nothing gets spell snared here except bloody Blighted Ancient Days. So, yeah, make of that what you will. Deck's really cool though. I'd really like they all play one crop rotation, which I just find really real nice.
And then like one wasteland.
Yeah, Jacob Birch, good impact player as well. So I've been picking his brain about this in the last few weeks. Really cool. What else do we want to say for Legacy overall?
I don't know, man. It'll be very interesting to see what the pros have decided is the right move. I will be.
A lot of them are going to be wrong.
I think a lot of them are going to be wrong because I think it's hard for all of them to be right. Mm-hmm. But I also think that, like, I wonder how much of a thing card availability issues will be.
Yeah, super intriguing.
Like, I wonder how many people. Like, I'm not sure Lands is a great deck right now, but I wonder how many people think Lands is good, and how many will be unable to play it because, like, how do you get hold of a Tabernacle if you don't have friends who play Legacy?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I do think a lot of people will just default to Sneak and Show, and I think that that's just a very wise decision for a bunch of reasons, some of which we've already said. I will say that if you do want to play Sneak and Show, I did want to say this earlier, I just want to get this in, don't mess around with Cunning Wish for heaven's sake. Just play your 2 Omnis and your Arcane Arts in your sideboard and just do your thing. Don't play the Wishboard stuff.
Yeah, Wishboard's been bad for a while, I think.
I know, but people like to be cute, and I just want to make them...
People do like it. It's one of the reasons, again, why people like the Grixis control deck, so they're like, oh, it has a card for everything, and I'm like, that's cool. Yeah. It's not actually how Magic the Gathering really works. But it's cool. Yeah, you do have this one card in your sideboard for this deck. Mm-hmm. You're right.
Oh, I kind of want to see a 4-color Loam show up.
I think that deck got a lot better.
Yeah, that deck got a lot better, and that deck's just really cool. And that deck kind of, for me, really showcases a lot of cool Legacy things. It's like, I know Knight of the Reliquary sees like some modern play, but Knight of the
Not in the same way. Knight of the Reliquary is just such a different card in Legacy.
I mean, you could just get like
you can wasteland people. You can dark depths people.
And then you've got obviously your Punishing Fire, and because in your Loman, in your Zenith thing, and still playing like...
It's definitely a cool Legacy deck showing off cool Legacy interactions that are not Brainstorm plus Fetch Land.
Exactly, which is why I want it to show up and just kind of, just showcase things a little bit. I do think that it looks to be the better Knight deck at the moment compared to Maverick, so yeah, interesting. I think that's kind of Legacy in a nutshell. As I said, we kind of flew over a lot of things very, very quickly and delved into some things, but I didn't want to eternalize because we wanted a big bulk of the episode talking about Bridgevine. Thank you very much for that, by the way. That was a lot of really cool insight. And yeah, it's just exciting when these decks come up and just to kind of jump in on them. And we did do a Hollow One episode, I think a few weeks ago, but it's quite... I think at that point, Hollow One was still kind of... Although it was still kind of growing, it was a fairly established base, whereas it...
Yeah, it definitely was a known deck at this point. Where I think this deck is becoming known, but it's not something you would expect to see a lot of, whereas I think it should be.
Absolutely.
Or at least I think it will become so.
Absolutely. Is there anything else you want to cover off before we finish off?
Everything we've said about all of these formats... is subject to, this being a team tournament.
Yep. And
maybe some terrible modern deck will do well because it's a pro playing it who knows what he's doing, and the matches that he loses because his deck is just bad are carried by his teammates.
Can't wait to see 16 Spellquellers in the top 8.
Also, pro teams are scary as hell.
Right.
You go up against PGO, and it's not like you go up against Owen Turtenwald in a solo tournament, and you're like, alright, this dude's sick. He's much better than me.
Yeah.
And, I have a bad matchup, so maybe I'm a 70, maybe I'm an 80% dog here. But, 1 in 5 games, that's alright. Mm-hmm. Your team goes up against the Peach Garden Oath team, and it's alright, we're all 80% dogs. So we have to win 1 in 5 games twice.
Yeah.
That's really hard.
It's unreal. That's unreal.
Like, team tournaments, if you are, like, favored against the other team due to skill or matchup or whatever, it becomes so much harder to, like, continue, or, like, to win, basically, and you become so much more of a dog. So, I do think that we are going to see a lot of named pros at the top tables of this event.
Mm-hmm. Which will be exciting. It'll kind of construct a cool tournament narrative. And, I mean, yeah, if you're going in as a lesser-known team or whatever, then it will make for a kind of intimidating bunch of top tables, but it will be cool to see some non-pros as well, kind of, like, rise to the top despite all of that. So, I'm really excited for this tournament overall, because, I mean, obviously, it's no mystery that I'm a big Legacy fan, so having it on the big stage will be exciting despite all of the issues that surround having a large tournament with Legacy. I will ultimately be happy when it's on my telly, watching Twitch, and things, Force of Wills are happening.
And I've turned off the chat.
That's an important precondition to me being happy. Well, consuming
It's an important precondition to everyone being happy, man. Just turn off Twitch chat, guys. It makes your life so much better.
And with those pearls of wisdom, I think we can sign off. So, thank you very much for listening, guys. It's been of a mixed bag episode, but I really hope you enjoyed it. I wanted to cover a bunch of stuff, and I've been quite excited to get back into it after being away. Next week we'll talk about probably the PT, because it will have just happened, as well as Brussels prep, because I'll be going to that as well with a bunch of other people. Unfortunately, Nathaniel can't make it because he's working, but yeah, we can talk about that.
Also, standard sucks.
Well, hopefully some stuff happens.
It's just Siege Rhinos, Dan. It's just Siege Rhino standard. You don't get to play white and green. You have to play like red and blue.
That's why.
Man, I love Grixis Siege Rhino.
I mean, I think so do I. I just really like Turn 2 Steel Leaf as well. And I like Vine Mary in the... Anyway.
But now, Dan, you've got broccoli in your soul.
If you liked it, make sure that you like it, share the video or the RSS feed, which we're now sharing. We're still trying to get on iTunes. Unfortunately, it's impossible to get in touch with the support, from what I can tell, to see where we're at in the process. So we just kind of have to sit tight and...
Just see how it's going, because we do not know.
Yeah. In the meantime, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of these future episodes, as well as any of the other great content that the guys are putting, the guys and girls are putting together for the team, for the Vault. It's all good stuff. On Twitter, I'm at Dan Nathaniel, and Nathaniel is at F_Ironside. What I will say actually is check out last week's episode, because it's really, really, really good stuff. Thanks again to Nathaniel and Holt for that. Holt won Nats, and that's incredible. And it's an interview, and it's all really good stuff. So check it out. We'll put a link in the show notes for that, as well as Nathaniel's Bridgevine deck. Is there anything else we need to put in the show notes? For Jaren.
I don't think so.
Producer. Alright, cool. We'll just stick to that. Check out Matthew's Vault at matthewsvault.com. Also on Facebook, Twitter, WordPress. All the links are going to be down below. And once again, thanks very much for listening. We've been from the Vault. You've been fantastic.